He was the kind of guy that was riding around in a Rolls Royce with a kilo of cocaine on the front seat and a 44 Magnum on top of it. This was crazy. I was contracted by Jim Lewis, a VP Polygram, who actually was a friend of mine before. He sat me down at dinner one night and said, I want you to work with this guitar player. And I wasn't that familiar with Yngwie at the time, maybe a bit from Alcatraz, but that was it. And from Blackmore, of course, because I remember Richie one time holding up a magazine on a flight we were on and said, this guy's trying to be me. And I looked at a picture of Yngwie with the same pose and the white boots and all this. And I was like, oh, and he just flipped it off, really. It was quite funny. So that's as much as I knew from Yngwie. But Jim Lewis said to me, look, what you did with Rainbow, I want to do with this guy. He's a great guitar player, but he falls down in the song department. And I feel that a great lead singer, great guitar player, it's always worked in this business, the Glimmer Twins, whether it's, Robert Plant and Jimmy Page or, Richards, Jagger and Richards, it's the combination. So I went out to L.A. for, I think it was 3 or 4 days to meet with Yngwie. And it was the most wild time ever, because those were the days of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And he kind of turned around and went, yeah, I really like you. I think we can get on. But by the time I was ready to come back and start the record, he had had a terrible accident, a car accident. So I didn't bail out and go back east or anything. I stayed out in LA because the tracks were basically written, just the tracks. Okay. I need to do all melody and all lyrics. Okay. Now here you've got Yngwie in the hospital it was touch and go for a while, but everybody might know that story by now. And I was kind of overseeing the whole hospital stay. So I was the one that reported to Polygram when Northridge Hospital needed money. I had to get it wire transferred because I was the elder, so to speak, the one responsible out of the group. So I was definitely assisting in that area. But at the same time, it gave me an opportunity to sit down and just write melodies and lyrics to all these great tracks that Yngwie made. And then when he finally got out, that's when we started recording the album. And I think his performances on the album, I think they're amazing to this day, because I don't think he overplayed. A lot of times he overplays on some of these albums, but that time, for whatever reason, I think he played everything in the right place at the right time where it should be. And Odyssey has some really brilliant songs on it. Plus, I did the job that Jim Lewis wanted me to do. We had Heaven Tonight, which was a huge single for him, and Dreamin', which is an amazing ballad. There was finally Rising Force, a song that I figured he needed as a title for the band, which came out great. And these all worked in concert. So that was another big thing. They translated live. So I think, again, another successful record. Would have been good to do another record with Yngwie, but things prevail, and that's the way it goes. Sometimes you go with the flow.
So how difficult is that on a personal level then? Because obviously you're working on music, and at the same time, Yngwie is, as you said, he was in a really, really difficult place. So you're thinking, I've got to make this record, I've got to get this right. But at the same time, it might not even come out, or it might not be the way we want it to be because of what's happening with poor Yngwie.
Well, we didn't even know if it was going to happen, if he was going to make it. Needless to say, I kept on writing. I kept on making sure at least we had that much of the work done, and always praying and hoping that he would come out of it, and we would be able to dive right into the record, slowly but surely. And plus, on top of that, I think what you're really saying is, did I get any help from anyone else? No, because his manager at the time, Andy Truman, was really no help at all. He wanted to put him down in County Hospital because Northridge Hospital was a very elite and expensive hospital. So I went down to County Hospital with Andy one day, and I said, he is not going to stay in this hospital. I looked around, and County Hospital in LA is basically where people go to die. It's just awful. You can sense it. He was in the right place, but it was costing an extremely large amount of money off the advance. And Andy's angle was, we found out later, he was taking these advances. He was pocketing these advances. Okay. For example, Yngwie thought he owned his house, owned his Ferraris, all that. No, they were all leased at the time because Andy just made the perception, the optics that he owned it. But actually, he was pocketing large amounts of the advance. So I didn't get any help from him. You know, he was the kind of guy that was riding around in a Rolls Royce with a kilo of cocaine on the front seat and a 44 Magnum on top of it. This was crazy. We had to have a 24-hour security in front of Yngwie's house after we got rid of Andy because he was kind of vengeful. Oh, it was a hell of a time. Look, I don't have a problem with Yngwie. Yngwie's Yngwie. You know, it is what it is. And it got a little bit too much towards the end. I can remember walking around Stockholm in the rain, cursing him because he was just getting overbearing. It was just too much. And at times like those, no, you don't want to do another record. You know, you really don't. You need some distance between you to settle down. Looking back, I guess we could have, you know, if he was a little more reasonable at the time. But to be honest, I think he felt threatened and maybe he felt he needed to go in a different direction. And if he's going in the direction that he's been going in lately, I don't know. That's a good decision simply because he's not a great singer. He's not a great drummer or a producer. And, you know, I listen to the records and I go, wow, you know, geez, that's not going to make it. Then I listen to Odyssey and I say, whoa, you know, it's like a super, super piece of work. So I guess sometimes you're your own worst enemy, you know, and in this case, apparently Yngwie is his own worst enemy. But I have no problem with Yngwie to this day. What was done was done. What was said, you know, quote unquote, diary of a madman. So what are you going to do?